Gentlemen and ladies, in today's video, I want to talk about Need for Speed Unbound. I mean, obviously, right? That's what majority of the channel is based on, but no, I am talking about what Need for Speed Unbound actually is. No, I am not talking about it's a racing game. We all know it's a racing game. I'm talking about the identity of Unbound. One of the major complaints I continue to hear about the game is that it has an identity crisis and is trying to be like other games in the series like Most Wanted and Hot Pursuit, but is failing miserably. I think that a lot of people are looking at the game in the wrong eyes, maybe due to a strong sense of nostalgia or something else. The way you should be looking at Unbound is through a blank slate type of vision where you go into it expecting it to be different completely. Why do I bring this up? Because so many people continue to want to talk about how these recent updates are wrong in this way and that due to missing features or how it does not feel like what they were supposedly trying to recreate. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to go ahead and drop a like and subscribe, and let's get straight into it. Boom, boom. The first thing I'm going to say is that Unbound is not supposed to be a remaster, reskin, or remake of any other older Need for Speed game. This game has its own identity, completely different from the rest of the series. The way that people expect things to be in Unbound, it's like they wanted to feel the exact same way they did back then, and that is just not realistic. First, Unbound acts completely different. It has a different audience. It has a different story, different cars for different purposes. It's in a completely different city, completely new characters. I could keep going. Those older games were built around certain themes, while Unbound has already been built around something completely different and is just adding new things on top of it. What I mean by this is that when they were creating games like Most Wanted, they knew that the game was going to be what it was about and that it would turn out the way that it did, which is why it plays that way. When Unbound was created, they knew that things would be different and it is a completely different feel. So when these new updates finally dropped, they were being dropped into something that was already written. So basically they had to be catered around what the game was already about, if that makes sense. That is like comparing GTA 5 racing to a purebred racing game. Of course they are not going to feel the same because GTA 5 is not built around racing at its core. It is its own thing that just happens to have racing in it. Same with Unbound. It is not Hot Pursuit Remastered or Most Wanted at its core. It just happens to have aspects of those modes in it made apparent with some of the recent updates. Every themed update that is dropped is not supposed to take precedence over the main game. It is supposed to be the dev's take on an older concept within the confines of the world of Unbound. Why do these updates not feel like the original? Because they were never meant to be like the original. The whole point of these updates is to bring players back to something that is familiar to them, but with the twist of Unbound added into the mix. These updates were never supposed to be carbon copies of previous titles because what would be the point in that? If you want to play something that feels exactly like something else, why would you not play the original? Unbound has its own set of physics when driving, its own animations, its own abilities, and numerous other things that separate it from the rest. Of course, you are not going to get the feel of an older game if you are playing a newer one that does a complete 180 on how things were originally made. Having played hundreds of hours in every single new themed update, I will say that they captured the feeling pretty well of the older games and combined it just right where you can kind of feel like you're playing an updated version of the older modes. Let's take this recent update, Volume 9. So many people were upset that the original Blacklist cars were not going to be featured in the lockdown mode of the game, but why would they? Is having an entire update themed around an older game not enough? As I said before, the whole point is to bring players back to what they recognize from older games, but with the twist of Unbound. These cars that are featured in Lockdown are cars that the people in Lakeshore wanted to customize to give tribute to the older versions. If that is not the perfect example of what I am trying to say, then I do not know what else I could use. The dev team added the amazing features of Blacklist cars and Razor back to the Need for Speed series, which people love with their passion, but added their own twist to it so that it's its own thing. They added majority of the OG liveries, but on newer cars that have relevance in the Unbound universe, not the Most Wanted universe. That way, when the update drops and when people discover the story, everything will already make sense. Why would they add new models to cars in a new game mode and have a brand new storyline when they can just take what they are already made and combine the two? Like, leave stuff like that in the past. You are not in Rockport anymore, you are in Lakeshore. Everyone who has played Most Wanted had an experience with the Blacklist cars. Why do you need to experience that again in a whole different game? Sure, I can understand the disappointment of not having the original vehicles and original liveries, but that is a whole different game, and it would not be fair for you to expect that in something that is completely different. A lot of the newer cars that were chosen actually work very well with the entire theme, and literally add no negatives to what the overall experience of the game is. The point is that Blacklist cars are back, and they wanted to give players something to reminisce on, not a direct copy. Now onto Hot Pursuit, where people feel it wasn't good due to the fact that it was not a copy and paste from the original. If you go into this mode thinking that it will be exactly like the original, then you have already tricked yourself. The whole purpose was to give players an authentic experience that took inspiration from Hot Pursuit and combined it with what Need for Speed Unbound is about. Of course it will not feel the same. You literally have cars going sideways due to burst loss. The game mode on its own is completely fine. I am not talking about bugs or how the police can be overpowered. I'm just talking about what was added and how it works on the surface. The basics of how Hot Pursuit works is done well enough. You have racers who are trying to escape, and then you have the police who are trying to catch them. What else is there to add that would capture as much of the older experience? There's really nothing else. You have people on the internet complaining about the game mode because it doesn't have rear view mirrors? Really? You are trying to compare a game that was built on cops versus racers and a game that has the game mode in it. This is another instance where the power of nostalgia seems to sap any of the fun out of a brand new experience. Instead of looking at the new mode as an updated 2.0 version, people want to look at it as a failed mission due to how Hot Pursuit back then had this and Hot Pursuit back then had that. The update was inspired by Hot Pursuit, not a remaster of Hot Pursuit. Unbound has given players an experience that cannot be found in any other racing game, and people have the nerve to want it to act exactly like every other Need for Speed. Why would you want a new game to continue down the same path as every older one? At that point, why would we even need a newer one? It will act the exact same as the one before it. This game gives players the ability to do things from previous older games that those games either could not allow due to technology or would not allow due to the way that they were created. You are now able to micro drift and get burst knobs to slam straight into cops or maneuver around them. This was not in older games. You can now ride bikes to collect Blacklist cars, and that for sure was not in any other Need for Speed game. You have a brand new list of coveted cars that not only give you the same liveries as the old ones, but also carry the same rarity. So you're telling me that after you collected all the Blacklist cars in one game, you want to go to another game and collect the exact same Blacklist cars all over again? It seems like people will do anything but go back and play the older game. And for those who say that they should not have to play the older game, please scroll back through the video to where I say that Unbound is not like the older games. All of these updates and volumes are inspired by, not copied to. Even outside of these updates, Unbound has always been compared to other racing games in the franchise, and because of that, it takes away from what makes this game unique. Instead of immediately criticizing things that take place and how they feel different from a game that was released almost 20 years ago, realize that things change over time and that Unbound never wanted to be the second most wanted or second Hot Pursuit. It just wanted to bring you guys joy with features from those games in addition to what makes Unbound, Unbound. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to go ahead and drop a like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.